In the 1990s, Russia had a secret problem. Boys were disappearing one by one. No one understood why. Parents searched. Police searched. Nothing made sense. Then, one name appeared. A man who looked harmless. A man who went to work every day. A man no one feared. When the truth was finally uncovered, the country froze. Not because of what he did, but because of what came next. Russia executed him. And then, it never executed anyone again. This is not just a crime story. It is the story of a decision that changed Russian history forever. Subscribe now and stay with us as we uncover the story. In the 1990s, Russia had a secret problem. Boys were disappearing one by one. No one understood why. Parents searched. Police searched. Nothing made sense. A man was at the center of it all. His name was Sergey Alexandrovich Golovkin. He was born on November 26, 1959, in Moscow. He grew up in the city, quiet, ordinary. No one predicted what he would become. On the surface, his life was simple. He went to school. He learned practical skills. He worked with animals. Later, he became a livestock specialist at a stud farm outside Moscow. He trained horses. He tended to animals. He earned respect for his work. Neighbors and co-workers saw only a quiet man who lived a routine life. But beneath that calm exterior, a darkness was growing. In 1984, Sergey committed his first known attack. A young boy was assaulted. He survived. At the time, the crime did not reach the public. Few knew about it. It was an early warning, though. It showed that something was wrong. Then, in April 1986, the first confirmed murder happened. A 15-year-old boy named Andrei Pavlov was near a train station in the Nekrasov area. Sergey met him there. He forced the boy into the forest. And there, Andrei died. It was calculated. It was deliberate. This act was only the beginning. A few months later, in July 1986, another boy disappeared. 12-year-old Andrei Golyov vanished from a summer camp near Odintsovo. Searches turned up nothing. Families were left without answers. Police were busy with missing person reports, but struggled to see a pattern. At first, investigators thought these were isolated events. Some suspected different criminals were responsible. Over the next few years, more children disappeared. Some were found, but many were not. Each time a child vanished, fear spread through families and neighborhoods. Parents whispered warnings. Teachers told children to stay close. The sense of safety in everyday places began to erode. In 1988, Sergey made a decision that would shape the next chapter of his life. He bought a car and began building a new space behind his garage at the stud farm. On the surface, it was a workshop, a place for tools, a place for repairs. But below the garage, he constructed a hidden basement, a secret room. Over time, that basement became a place of terrible acts. Between 1990 and 1992, Sergey lured boys aged 10 to 16 into that space. He used tricks to gain their trust. Some were offered money. Some were asked for help with tasks. Others were simply told lies. They went willingly. Once inside, they never returned home the same way. 8 confirmed victims were killed in that basement during this period. Each disappearance increased fear. The community could not understand what was happening. Schools warned children to stay away from strangers. Parents feared every outing. And yet, Sergey moved unnoticed. He blended into society perfectly. He went to work every day. People trusted him. No one suspected the truth. Then, in September 1992, 3 boys disappeared on the same day. They were friends, playing near their homes. Families reported them missing. Panic grew. Entire neighborhoods were on edge. And then, mushroom pickers discovered their bodies in the woods outside Moscow on October 5, 1992. Police now had physical evidence to follow. The isolated reports of missing children were connected. They were dealing with a single person, a man who had hidden his crimes for years. On October 19, 1992, Sergey Golovkin was detained. At first, he denied everything. He was calm. He showed no sign of panic. Investigators kept him under watch. When they finally searched his garage, they found clothing and personal belongings of missing boys. The evidence was undeniable. Faced with this, Sergey confessed. He admitted to 11 murders. He even revealed where some of the bodies had been left, helping the police recover remains previously thought lost. Psychiatrists examined him to determine his state of mind. They concluded that he was legally sane. He understood what he was doing. He knew right from wrong. Yet, they also noted traits that explained his lack of empathy. schizoid tendencies, psychopathy. He had a mind that allowed him to plan, calculate, and hide his crimes for years without being detected. Police, families, and communities began to understand the full scale of what had happened. 11 confirmed victims. Countless years of fear. The man who had blended into ordinary life had caused unimaginable pain. Investigators documented every detail. They interviewed those who knew him. They traced his steps. They recreated timelines. Every discovery added to the horror of understanding just how long he had gone unnoticed. The story spread quietly at first. People were shocked. How could someone who seemed so ordinary be responsible? How could he hide this for so long? The weight of the crimes pressed on the city. Families grieved. They sought answers. They demanded justice. The police and prosecutors prepared the case carefully, knowing that the legal process would need to be meticulous. During this period, the Soviet Union had dissolved, and Russia was a country in transition. The legal system was changing. The death penalty still existed, but public debates were beginning about whether it should be used. Golovkin's case became central to these discussions. It was both a criminal case and a symbol of the changing times. Investigators described his behavior as cold and methodical. His routine, which had seemed harmless, was the key to his evasion. He went to work. He earned respect. He lived in a way that concealed his crimes. The contrast between his normal life and his hidden acts shocked everyone who studied the case. Families struggled to comprehend the duality. How could a man be so ordinary in appearance, yet commit such acts in secret? By the fall of 1992, the full weight of Sergey's actions became undeniable. Physical evidence, his confessions, and witness accounts painted a clear picture. Police worked day and night to confirm every detail. The pieces of the puzzle fit together. Each child taken had been documented. Each disappearance now had a traceable path. The community, once frightened and confused, began to see justice approaching. Even after his confession, the impact of his crimes continued to ripple through society. Families could finally recover some of the missing. Communities tried to heal. Schools increased awareness programs. Neighborhoods held meetings. And yet, the question lingered. How had one man avoided detection for so long? How had the ordinary world failed to notice the danger? The story of Sergey Golovkin is not just the story of one criminal. It is the story of a society grappling with the limits of understanding. It is a story of fear, silence, and the way ordinary routines can hide extraordinary darkness. It is a story that forces reflection on vigilance, empathy, and the fragility of safety. By the end of this period, the hunt was complete. The man had been caught. The crimes were known. Justice was waiting. But the shadow of the fear he had created remained. Families mourned. Communities remembered. And the story of Sergey Golovkin became a turning point, a moment in history that marked the limits of detection, the consequences of hidden evil, and the weight of decisions to come. After his arrest, Sergey Golovkin's world shrank to the cold walls of interrogation rooms. At first, he remained quiet, calm, detached. Investigators probed, asking questions, seeking confessions, watching his reactions. He did not flinch. He did not break. But beneath that calm, the truth was beginning to unravel, piece by piece. The evidence was overwhelming. Clothing, personal items, and objects belonging to missing boys were discovered in his garage and basement. Each item told a story. Each item added weight to the accusations. Investigators, who had chased shadows for years, finally had proof. And Sergey, he began to talk. He confessed, slowly at first, then in detail. 11 victims, 11 lives lost. He revealed where some bodies had been left. He spoke with the cold precision of someone calculating every word, every movement, every fact. And yet, there was an emptiness to his recounting. No remorse, no visible emotion, just facts. Methodical, controlled. Psychiatrists examined him to determine his state of mind. They concluded he was legally sane. He understood the consequences of his actions. He knew right from wrong. Yet, they also noted psychological traits that explained his coldness, schizoid tendencies, psychopathy. A mind capable of planning, manipulating, hiding darkness behind the mask of normality. The families of the victims struggled to comprehend the truth. Faces they remembered, lives they had loved, were gone. Communities mourned. Schools and neighborhoods tightened their vigilance. Fear lingered, even after the arrest. How had one man moved unnoticed for so long? How could ordinary life conceal such evil? Questions remained, heavy, unanswerable, echoing in the minds of parents and investigators alike. The trial began. Moscow watched quietly. It was a time of transition in Russia, socially, politically, legally. The death penalty still existed, yet debates had begun about its morality and necessity. The courtroom was tense. Evidence was laid bare. Witnesses spoke. Families recounted memories of the lost. The weight of the crimes pressed against every wall. Sergey Golovkin listened, expressionless. He heard the stories of the victims' lives, the impact on their families, and yet, he showed no visible reaction. The contrast between his calm presence and the horror recounted around him was jarring. Investigators, psychologists, and even judges were left to wrestle with this duality. A man ordinary in appearance, capable of extraordinary darkness. On October 19, 1994, he was convicted. 11 murders, with aggravating circumstances. The court sentenced him to death, the ultimate punishment under Russian law at the time. He appealed. He asked for mercy. He wrote letters. But the state had already decided. Justice, in this case, would not waver. By the mid-1990s, Russia itself was changing. It was beginning to engage with European human rights standards. Executions became increasingly rare. Public debate raged. Should capital punishment remain, or should life imprisonment replace it entirely? Golovkin's case stood at the center of this debate. He would become the last man executed under Russian law, a grim milestone, etched forever in history. On August 2, 1996, the sentence was carried out at Butyrka prison in Moscow. A single shot ended the life of Sergey Alexandrovich Golovkin. The act was silent, swift, official, and then it was over. The man who had terrified a nation, hidden in plain sight, was gone. Yet the story did not end with his death. Russia soon established a moratorium on the death penalty. By 1999, no further executions would occur. Golovkin's life and crimes became a symbol, a turning point. His case reminded the country of the dangers that can hide behind ordinary faces, of the consequences of inattention, and of the complex moral questions surrounding justice and punishment. The families of the victims continued to mourn. Communities remembered, and the nation reflected on the weight of the past, the fragility of trust, and the darkness that can live behind a calm, ordinary exterior. Sergey Golovkin's story is not just about a man who killed. It is about a society confronting fear, understanding evil, and grappling with how to prevent it. Even today, his name remains etched in Russian criminal history. The last man executed. A reminder of lives lost. A reminder of vigilance. A reminder of the choices a society makes, and the consequences that follow. The story of Sergey Golovkin ends, but its echoes remain. 11 lives lost. Families changed forever. Communities left with questions that may never be answered. Yet, in this tragedy, there is a lesson. A reminder that evil often hides in the most ordinary places, and that vigilance, awareness, and care are the shields we must carry every day. Russia moved forward. Laws changed. Executions stopped. But the memory of those children and the man who took them lingers in history. It reminds us that justice is not just about punishment. It is about understanding, protection, and the responsibility each of us holds to safeguard innocence wherever we find it. As we reflect on this story, we remember the victims. We honor their lives. And we learn that even in darkness, light can come from knowledge, vigilance, and the courage to act. If this story stayed with you, if it made you pause, reflect, or understand the fragility of life, make sure to subscribe. Share this story. Keep the memory alive. Because remembering is part of protecting the future. And above all, never take ordinary moments for granted. Danger can be hidden behind the most ordinary face.